Good. Well, it's actually afternoon today when we're doing this, which we are very late. Sorry. So anyways.
They don't know that.
I know they don't know that, but poor Beth does. What we decided to do is we started thinking about this last week because remember we talked a little bit about machine applique last week? Well, there was a point behind that because sometimes we see patterns come in and they're either wool or they're cotton. And some people don't like working with wool. Some people love working with wool. And we wanted to explain to you that you can take any pattern and make it do what you want. You are the boss of it. It is not the boss of you.
You be the boss.
You be the boss. So what we did is we took a pattern and we did, believe it or not, doubles of everything.
Yes, we are not so stupid to just do one. We do
That's right. We
two.
did two. So we're going to show you some samples here of some things we did in both cotton and wool. And we just want to kind of show you the difference. And both Marty and I are going to be piping in on this as we go along. Let's start with this one. I don't remember what the names of them are, but you can match the pictures them. I think this was a basket full of something, but who knows. So anyways, this one we did out of cotton. All right, this is flat cotton. The pattern actually called for wool. We did it on prairie cloth. We did it all by machine. And I did this one yesterday. This is one of those things where get your decorative stitches out on your machine. If you look at this, on the wool one, she did it dimensional, but I just did a decorative stitch there. And I did some of it regular buttonhole, but it's, it gives you an opportunity to just do something fun with your machine that you don't normally do. So if you want,
fun because, as I say, your thread really matched well on the green.
Yeah, it did.
But you did just a feather stitch down through
right down the middle.
center of it.
I was not going to try to do a buttonhole around all those little stupid leaves. That would have driven me nuts. Now you have to use your imagination a little bit because last night, of course, I decided, because we were deciding what are we going to do with these things. Can you see?
We'll do this, okay?
Yeah, but don't you think, isn't that going to be pretty? But we didn't have a frame big enough this morning when I came in.
The gray frame is gorgeous.
The gray is good, but I needed a little bit bigger. But don't you think that's going to be pretty?
It's gonna be beautiful.
So that is the one. Now, this is the cotton one. This.
And now, wait, before you, I just wanted to say one more thing about these little ferns that you just did the stitch down through the middle. You have to pick your projects. This is something that is not going to go through the wash 100 times or even possibly even once.
Ever.
So getting all of those edges down is not nearly as important as something that is going to be washed. So doing that feather stitch down through the middle is a perfect option.
Yep. And I did match my threads to this one.
Okay.
All right. So then
now.
So this was the cotton one. So this was the one we did with wool.
That is not finished.
That is not quite finished. Now the background is flannel. We did black flannel, and then this has got a little dimensionality to it, and it will be either. Did you even start stitching?
Yeah, I did the centers on the sunflower, and actually I stitched it by machine too. Because this was a nice new little thing that I usually when I do wool applique by machine, I use a wool thread. I actually used Valdani pearl cotton in it.
And did you use 14 needle?
I used 116 needle. And it worked perfectly. I mean, it really worked very nicely. So and I guess going back to our original premise on wool versus cotton, if you're allergic to wool, but you still like doing the applique, or you see a pattern that was done in wool that, you're like, I want to do that, but I don't want to do it in wool, then don't. You be the boss. Oh, did it pop off?
Sorry, one of those popped off. So here you have, I don't know if you can get these both in the same. You have cotton, you have wool.
Right.
Same exact pattern, very much the same colors.
Right.
But depending on what you like to do, that will work. Okay, so that's one. We'll move right along here. Now this is another one we did, kind of similar flare. This is the cotton one.
Which we showed you last week. That was the one that we started with buttonhole applique.
That's the one you were working on.
This one is potted petals. This one I know what it is.
Okay, so that's potted petals. Don't know what this is going to be in the end.
Just
but
a wall hanging, I think.
Okay, but again, this is all cotton. The pattern originally was designed for wool, but you use fusible web. And for this, we would use the Heat and Bond Featherlight rather than the soft fuse.
And you can see too, okay, so obviously, or another reason for doing the cotton rather than the wool, maybe you don't like handwork. So, but you have these lines on the pots that have
Right here?
the accent lines. They've got to go in there. So rather than doing them by hand, I just did a little satin stitch. So drew them on with my white sew line marker and then stitched over them with a satin stitch. Same thing with the stamens on the lily. You know, I just did a free motion bzz, 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 and then kind of went around in a circle on the end for the little balls on the ends of the stamen. So all of that can be done free motion.
And the fact that you did it through the batting
Right.
gives you the dimensionality of the quilting.
Plus
And
you
don't
have to have stabilization.
Yes, you've got to when you're doing that. Okay, so here is the cotton version, and now here is the wool version.
Again, not done.
Again, not done, but that's all right. That's okay. Again, we used the prairie cloth for the back, which because it's a little bit meatier fabric, it can support this much wool. So, again, let me look at the difference. Very, very close to being the same colors and everything of the flowers and everything, but one is wool, one is cotton.
I think the big difference, and again with the last ones that we looked at, it's the difference of the little bit darker, little bit lighter backgrounds is the big difference between them two, and that's it.
Well, and the dimensionality, I think you have a little bit more oomph with the wool than you do.
And on this guy again, I did use the shape flex on the back of it, on the one that you're holding.
This one.
Yes, I put shape flex on the back of the prairie cloth before I even started because again, you've got to have something stable based to put all of your appliques on.
Okay?
Yep.
All right, so that's those two. Now we're going to go to, those are two different patterns that we have. All of this stuff hopefully will be on the website if we can get poor Beth going here because Lord knows we are so late. Oh, here, we can just turn this over like this. How's that for being? Was this a separate pattern?
Yes.
Okay, this was a separate pattern and it was intended for wool. So here's your wool version. Pumpkins, still the season, girls.
And those if those of you that like doing wool applique, if you haven't ever done the chain stitch for like tendrils and stuff, you are missing out on a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it goes so much faster if nothing else.
So much faster. Plus, you can do around circles, tighter circles, without the stitches jumping.
So that would be the wool version, and this is the cotton version.
Did it in batiks. And again, what I did, and we don't have enough time to do it today, so we may address it at another time. All those tendrils are done free motion zigzag.
Satin stitch.
Satin stitched. Which maybe we'll discuss that another day.
Yeah.
But again, so that you are not having to do the handwork, everything on there was done by machine. And then around the edge, because I turned it, I didn't bind it, I just did an orange feather stitch.
Right here.
Yep.
And we did the turning like we've talked about before, where you take the backing and you put a slit in it.
Yeah, no.
I know it's not. That's why you did that on purpose so I could do this.
Okay.
To
Thank
show
you.
that.
Okay.
Yes.
Hint, wink,
All
wink,
right,
wink.
wink. Yeah. So that, again, it was intended for wool. You can easily translate it into cotton if you prefer not to use wool. Some people love wool, some people are allergic, as Marty said. So
some people like doing handwork, some people don't.
People don't. And you can even do machine work on wool if you like the look, but you don't want to do the handwork.
Right.
The world's your oyster. I was going to say, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. Okay. Folks. All right. So then we are going to go to, let's do this right
These
here.
guys? Okay.
Yeah.
I loved these guys.
This was a pattern, and it has
There's 7 different designs on it, and they're called penny ornaments. They're about 4.5 inches, so they're not small. And actually, let me reach back here.
These are the wool version. This is the wool version.
And then this was the 7th one, the little scarecrow who was not done.
I thought it was a snowman when I first looked at it.
No, fall. These are
This
all
is
fall themed.
Yes. I don't think we need that.
So you can see everything was hand done on here. And then and then we just backed them with a flannel buttonholed around the outside edge. But what I did, and can you just take this for a sec, Terry? What I did when we got these done is I did all of the applique onto the background and then buttonholed it onto the black circle. But I used our soft fuse. I applied it to the red, and I also applied it to the black.
Can you turn it over and show?
Yep, I will.
Oh.
The one thing that you've got to make sure is when you're applying this circle to this one, you've got to leave the paper on.
Or you fuse it to your
Or
ironing board
you've
for
just fused it to your ironing board.
instant decoration.
Right. So then you can see that there's fusing on the back of this. So then to finish this off, and he gets eyes in there, and that's it. But then to finish it off, what I did is I went and I measured. So I cut 5-inch squares of the background, or of my backing, and I kind of popped him on there. And then I decided to use jute for the hanger. So I basically tucked this under one end.
I thought you couldn't until you pinked it.
No, these don't get pinked.
Oh, okay.
We haven't gotten there yet.
Oh, okay.
Kind of made sure that they were looking even. And then what I did is I just very carefully flipped it and ironed it. Because then what you can do is you just went and I cut it even. You just kind of pull this up out of the way while you're doing that
Trimming
cutting.
it.
And then it's just buttonhole the outside edge. These were really, really fun to do.
And quick.
So then we decided to go the cotton version with this.
Remember, that's our whole point. We're doing cotton and or wool.
So these are all flannel. So they still have a nice body to them because, again, you've got a couple layers of the fusing in there. And so that's what these guys are. And what Teri and I were trying to figure out, how to finish the edge. And what we did is we used a pinking rotary cutter. So once I got these guys, and these are all machine stitched. So those are not done by hand. Those are all done by machine. And the one thing that I do want, and Teri and I have got to decide, we haven't even talked about this. So when I was stitching this guy, because what I did is I fused all of the stuff to the colored one and then onto the black because I knew a backing was going onto it, so I didn't have to do that. But there is, again, fusing here. Mm-hmm. So now the thing is when you try to stitch this on your machine, that fusing will stick to the bed of your machine. Mm-hmm. So you've got to put something underneath it to make sure that it's going to stitch. So you can either use, this is that golden paper that we were talking about last week. This works really well, or if you have some tissue paper, something like that. Don't use typing paper, copy paper.
That's too heavy.
Because when you go to pull it off, you want something very nice, lightweight, that won't distort your stitches.
Not only that, but you don't want it taking the fusible web away either.
Right. So that's the cotton version of those guys. And then what we decided is we did the pinking, and then I'm just going to very honestly hot glue a little hanger on the back of it, and they're ready to go. I mean, these things are meant to be quick and easy, and that's what we're going to do.
Okay. So that's the little hanger. So now Marty's going to take this back, and I'm going to sit down. I've had a long morning here, let me tell you. Okay. So then what we did, let's come back to this. Do y'all remember we did the little cardinal stuffed? It was a little bird. And then we did, I think it's up there someplace. And then I did a little cat, which I took home. I was going to bring back, and I totally forgot. Well, the same designer came out with a little Punkman.
You did Rusty, too, the snowman.
Oh, Rusty the snowman, too. So her next one, or this one we found, is a little pumpkin. She calls them pin keepers. Not pin cushions, but pin keepers. Now, a couple of things that I want to tell you about this. Again, we did it in flannel, and we did it in wool. And this is a Primo flannel, which was even nicer too. Now, when I was doing these, a couple little tidbits for you. This was my first one I did, and it's obviously my most rustic. Because you do this, and I'm not going to get into real graphic terms, but it's very easy. But what you're going to do is take the pattern, trace it onto freezer paper, iron the freezer paper onto your fabric, and what she has you do is she traces around it. Well, what I found out worked is if you iron that freezer paper down, stitch right around that so you don't have to mark anything, and then you trim a 1/4 inch around that.
So you're layering your 2 layers of fabric up.
Right.
Then the freezer paper on the top. So you're actually going on the wrong side of the fabric.
Yes, because you have to turn these.
Right.
Yes. Now, when I went to, and you have to do the little handle here, the stem. Thank you. I'm talking too fast, and my brain isn't keeping up.
I help.
Thank you. So this is my stem. Now, when I did, this is my first one I said I did. These look like little saddlebags on there. I will show you as I progressed along how I improved things. When I did this one, this is flannel. I just kind of roughly stitched this. Well, first of all, you put slits, and that's how you turn it and stuff it. And I did put a little bit of crushed walnuts in them, but you know what? They all ended up going down to one end. Must be I held it the wrong way.
You hold it like that, it looks like a cactus.
Oh, there you go. A hot dog is what I called it last night. But anyways, I put a little bit of
The
walnut shells in the bottom of all 3 pieces. And then I actually tried to put a little walnut shells down here to fill this little guy out, because it was a joy. When I went to stitch this on, because you want to, after you stitch these 2 saddlebags on, you want to stitch this on. I just did a raw edge, and it's okay. It's okay. But then I started looking at this, and I personally thought that this was out of proportion to this. I thought that this looked too long. That got my hot dog thing going. So what I did is on my next one, I took that piece. I don't know if you can see it. I took that piece and I just did a tuck in the paper. So I took like maybe a 1/2 inch to 1 inch off. So this is a little bit maybe more of a baby pumpkin. Same exact shape, it's just this part is a little bit shorter. And then the other thing I did on this one was, instead of having the raw edges showing, before I attached it to here, I turned under the very end and I just did a basting stitch around it. If you look really close, you can see it, but nobody look really close. And then the other thing I did when I was doing this one, you see it, I don't have the saddlebag effect as much, because I actually went back and forth between all 3 pieces and kind of snugged them up a little bit. So I think I like that shape a little bit better. Now this one is out of wool. So again, we have our cotton flannel, cotton primo flannel, and then we have our actual wool, although I put the wrong stem on it. This is the original size, like this one. But again, this one, what I did is I went back and forth through all 3 pieces, so it looks much better, I think. And again, I turned under the edge of the stem. So this was my last one. This was my best one. I liked this. I like the shape of this one, but I did the best job. So in other words, your first one isn't going to be perfect. Your first one isn't going to be perfect.
The more you make, the better you get.
The better you get, yes. So anyway, so that's our little stuffed pumpkin. And we've got all that information on the website. Now, the last thing we want to show you is a pattern we got in, and it's from Bare Roots Designs. And she has 2, 4, 6 different projects here. We really liked it. Great fall projects. So what we decided, this is kind of what started the whole thing.
Yeah.
We said, okay, these are done with wool. What if we do them in both? So let's start out.
Teri got much further than I did.
It's okay. We did not do the bottom 2 because this one is just stitchery. There's nothing big deal about this. And
it just says I love fall.
Yeah, I wasn't wild about the turkey. Marty said if she wasn't wild about the heart, but if we had just made it an oval.
I think if you do a turkey on a different thing, it would look very cute.
Look real, and they used rickrack in the seam, so that's a cute. They used rickrack here. Cute ideas. We did not have time. So anyways, let's start with this one. It's Be Thankful. So Marty did this. Get it going right side up. And this is going to be just a little wall hanging. Can you see?
Yep.
So that's the Be Thankful. And then I did, so she did this all out of cotton. And I did the little pillow all out of wool. So again, 2 totally different looks, 2 totally different projects, but same pattern. She added the border just because she wanted to.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. It's like, no offense, when you buy a pattern, you don't have to follow it after that. If you have a different use for this, I mean, these little pillows are great. You know, stick them in a basket or you know, along a mantle if you have something like that. But I don't have either one of those in my house. So little wall hangings like the one that I did are much more useful for me.
So I did all the wool applique on here. I did do by machine, but all I did is I did a buttonhole stitch. Why does it look like I missed a whole spot right there? I think I did. I missed this whole area in there. Okay.
Well, you're not fired.
Please do. Anyways, I want to just point out one other thing. I love doing leaves. Okay, you do the buttonhole around all the outside. What you do is you go up and you go up, over, back, up, over, back, up, over, back, up, and back down to the beginning. Easy peasy. Same thing. You can do little curved ones. They're fun. They're fun. Okay, so that's one of the projects that we did out of that pattern. Then we did, let's see, we only did one version of this one because this one pretty much you had to have the hand stitching on it.
Well, the other thing I got thinking about this, you could actually ink it.
Yeah, you could have. You could
I mean, if
do
you don't
that.
want to stitch it, if you want to do this by machine, you could ink all the lettering. That's what they make pigment marker pens for.
I did do this by hand. All of this is done by hand. All of those little French knots. But again, they went fast. This was not a huge project. And again, just put a little border on it. Very fallish. Did our backing like we've talked about. And so there we have another little pillow to put in our rustic basket that we didn't have last night. And then we have, this is the pumpkin pie fixes everything.
Which is my motto in life.
Yes, well, you do love pumpkin pie.
I love pumpkin.
So Marty did this one, and this is out of cotton. It's probably not going to stay. That's all out of cotton and all done by machine. She even did, this is what we talked about before, something about the...
with the tendrils on the pumpkin. The
right.
Little pumpkin
She
runner.
did this with like a satin stitch, and you just put it on with your blue washable marker, and you do a satin stitch on it. So that's a little wall hanging, and then I did mine by hand, and I made a little pillow out of it. Put a little, whatever this thing is called out here, flange out. It's maybe a little big. I think I should maybe stitch like a 1/4 inch from the outside edge. I may do that, I don't know. But again, just real cute, and again, this was easy peasy stitching. I used the transfer ease, put it on there, stitch through it, quick and really cute, I think. And then the last one we did was this one. This one is called Gather, and it's right over here. It's the cornucopia. Now, we were really smart in that we did this, used this fabric, so I did not have to draw all those little, or stitch all those little lines. Mine is already done, so I didn't have to do that. So actually the only stitching is right here. And then I did do all of that by hand. Now real quick, because I did these little guys multiple times last night when I was trying, she didn't have real good instructions on these little duggers or these little tongue things. So all I did was I fused 2 pieces of wool together, trimmed them, and put them on. Again, this is not going to be washed and worn and used and abused. If it was, then you would want to stitch around the outside edge, but I did not have time for that. So here's my little cornucopia all done with my little tongue sticking out there. So anyways, that is what we did for you. So the point of our whole point today was, doesn't matter if it says wool, it doesn't matter if it says cotton, you can usually interchange them and just have a good time. And
you just got to use your noodle a little bit.
yes,
That's all.
Common sense.
Common sense.
Now, we had kind of thought that this was going to be it on fall, but I think we're going to have one more week on fall. And then we're going to start jumping into Christmas projects for you.
Okay.
So
And below should be listed what we're going to do is most of these projects we are going to do kits for, and there will be a drop-down box, and you can either choose whether you want to do it in cotton or whether you want to do it in wool. So we are offering them in both ways. Now, if you are looking at this guy, it will only be the 4 projects that we did at the top of the page, not the bottom 2
Right.
also. Those would not be included.
okay.
And then we have 25 new fabrics on the website. We put those on Tuesday, so jump on there. We did that last week. Yeah, we got another 2 going, or another 25 going on today.
now. Yeah. So what you have to do is this isn't quite rustic enough. And that would be our blooper version of the thing. But you can get a basket and just chuck all these things in there and, put them someplace, and everybody thinks you're just wonderful.
I say if you have a mantle, they work perfect.
Yes.
Mantle would be great.
Stick your little pumpkin / hot dogs in them, and you're good to go. Okay, we're done. Bye.